Welcome back to the Remedial Film Class Podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Travis.
I'm George.
And I'm Blake. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Hey.
What am I doing here?
What is Blake doing here?
Not Blake from The Fog, right?
Blake was, no.
Okay, good.
Blake was a little jealous
Aw.
of Richard.
A little.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Yes.
Richard Oliver. And so it didn't feel right, to, have one, not the other. And so actually, Blake is the most successful podcaster I personally know.
Nice.
He is our most successful podcaster on the show to date. Sorry, Richard.
You got to meet some more podcasters, I think.
Right?
That's what it sounds like. That's what I'm getting out of it.
Blake Wyland from the Chasing Tone podcast, as well as the Tone Mob podcast. Have I forgotten anything, Blake? You were a cardboard cutout at one point.
I was a cardboard cutout at one point, as discussed on the most recent Chasing Tone episode that I'm assuming will come out around the same time this does. If not, this whole thing is just for naught. But no, that's the primary sources of me blabbering on the internet, unless I decide to start another one like I've been threatening to do for the last couple of years. But so far that hasn't happened yet.
Now, you mostly talk about the guitars. Do I understand that correctly?
That's the idea. But what ends up happening is usually something entirely different. So I started talking about guitars, and I still do talk about guitars. Sometimes things get really, really nerdy. But oftentimes these days, it goes just kind of out into the weeds. I start with guitar people, and then it could go anywhere. I spent 2 hours talking to a well-known guitarist, Yvette Young, about night terrors and sleep paralysis and aliens, and you never know where it could go. It could go anywhere.
Well, we run a tight ship here on the Remedial Film Class Podcast, and if you talk too far out of line, we'll push the button and it'll shock your chair. It's a whole thing. Lawsuits. Let's avoid the liability. Let's just stick to.
I think we talked about
movies.
guitars for 20 minutes during the First Blood episode. So, yeah. How did we get the guitars from John Rambo? I don't know, but we did it.
I don't know. Didn't we listen to Bob Dylan
I think so.
in that? Yeah.
Sure. Why not? 'Cause that's what we did.
That episode?
We do
I don't know how we got
occasionally end
there.
up listening to old Bob Dylan on this show. I don't apologize.
That works for me.
For any of that.
That works for me. Yeah, I
Now,
like it.
That's good.
Today's movie is Trading Places. John Landis, Dan Akroyd, Eddie Murphy, Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a continuation of our Jamie Lee Christmas special where we let George watch a lot of movies with Jamie Lee Curtis because he finally found an actress that appeals to him.
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
That's what's going on.
Okay. All right.
I unfortunately watched the first season of Trading Spaces. So I'm going to
Oh,
be
you,
talking
binged
about
it?
Yeah, I binged it. I didn't know what the hell we were talking about. I'm like, okay. And page is page.
Mm.
Anyway.
Well, I was taking some notes. I don't have a lot of notes. I have some high-level notes.
I have notes too.
It's just a few things. But most importantly, my phone is now, I can now swipe the initials JLC,
Nice.
and it'll pick it up.
Nice.
Jamie Lee Curtis, JLC.
Guys are
Friend of the show.
friend of the show.
I was gonna
hopefully
say,
one day.
you know her like personally? Is that a thing?
He thinks he does, especially after this movie.
Whoa.
Hey now.
Hey, oh, Groucho Marx eyebrows up and down. Yep, that's another movie reference, George. Groucho
Yeah,
Marx.
he's like, who's Groucho Marx?
Oh, I've heard of Groucho
Okay,
Marx.
good.
Yeah, friend of the show, right? Groucho.
He would be if he didn't die 25, 30 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Rest
what
in
are
peace.
your initial thoughts on the movie, George?
It was bonkers, man.
Is
Of course
that
it's bonkers. It's John Landis.
do I detect a positive it's bonkers? Or did I get a little kind of a cynical, like, oh, bonkers?
Snarkiness?
No, not cynical at all. It was bonkers in a good way.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Yeah, it's very good.
Stop playing coy. Give us specifics. We're not here to...
We're not going to pull it out of you.
I mean, dude, if I like I said, my notes are high level, if I like wrote every single detail of like everything that I thought was funny or I liked, it would just be like a list of things like, oh, I like this. I like this. I like this.
Okay.
I like this.
Well,
like for 2 hours.
For the sake of
It's
our
a
listeners,
2-hour movie.
Yeah.
maybe dress it up a bit. Give us some radio.
Okay, so first off, I did not know what I was getting into. You guys kind of hinted at JLC was going to be in this movie
We didn't want to,
last week.
but
We never try to tell you what's in the movies.
Yeah.
If you
Richard kinda
listen
let
to
the
our
cat out of
show,
the bag.
you would know.
Okay, so it was Richard's fault.
Yeah.
In
in a good way.
So I knew JLC was going to be in it, but I turned the movie on and like it just in the first minute, I get like really hyped because like it's
Hometown.
Betsy Ross Bridge,
Yep.
Pennsauken, like it's right on the sign. Pennsauken is the town I grew up in.
Guys,
That is
it's a
me.
little cloudy where I'm at right now, so the traffic copter can't take off. But for our newer listeners who haven't heard the oldest episodes, they need to understand that y'all like to talk about your area and the highways that connect you.
Yes.
So you're near this movie, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes, like 3 miles
It was
away
filmed
from
in
this movie.
Philadelphia, totally on location. So yeah, there's a lot of home in this movie.
So it
Like
gave you the warm fuzzies, is what you're saying. When you saw your
Sure. Yeah, dude.
hometown name on the sign, I saw your hometown name on the sign and went, ah, crap.
everyone who's watched this movie has seen my hometown on a sign.
And I was telling Dan earlier today, if they would have just taken that exit, they would have seen a shit ton of Haddonfield signs.
It's true because
Because-
Haddonfield is next door.
Right, and that road, that bridge takes you to Haddonfield Road, which would take you to Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is where Michael Myers was born.
Yes.
So we're just going to leave that one out there.
I'm so riveted right now. I can't even tell you. Guys, I'm so excited about all of this.
Well, what's funny is the Rocky statue is in there.
Yeah.
The Rocky statue is there. I do really, really want to go to Philadelphia, mostly to see the Rocky statue and eat cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have no real connection to it other than that. And I don't know. I like the vibe of the East Coast, but not in a way that I want to be there longer than a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like I'm a West Coast boy, and so that's just. But I've always felt an attraction to cities like Philadelphia, Boston, New York City, which I'm not lumping them all together. They're all very different, but they're all so different from over here, collectively. But
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed the Philadelphia, like just the whole backdrop of Philadelphia being at the center of the show. That was actually one of my favorite things about
It
it.
was neat how it was kind of like New York, but it was New York light. Like
Yeah.
everybody was kind of moody and kind of rude, but they were kind of nice too in a Philly way. Like, hey, you're standing in a 4-foot puddle, but I didn't warn you before you stepped in it, but I'm going to tell you you're wet.
Right.
Yeah.
Before the taxi runs and splashes you, you know, like, so you're just wet from the knees down,
Yeah.
you know? Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Philly statue, the Rocky statue, I was like, oh, God, that was brand new because this movie came out in 83. And I believe Rocky 3 came out in 83. So
Okay.
that statue debuted in Rocky 3. So that was almost a brand new statue in this movie. Just
I
saying.
had some real issues
cool.
with the Rocky statue being in this movie because it hit me like how artificial it must be for someone to create a statue of themselves for a movie, like self-aggrandizing, and then to put it in someone else's movie. Holy moly, guys. Holy moly.
Did you see Rocky 3?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. So the story behind the statue is actually, it touches right on exactly what you just said. But we'll do that in Rocky 3 when we actually do it.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I haven't seen Rocky 3 either. Surprise, surprise.
It's ironic that that's what Dan said because that actually is
It
what this,
ties in.
Yeah, it ties in.
Interesting.
See,
This
I've
is
got
so
my
weird.
finger
I've
on
never
the
been
pulse,
around.
man.
I've never been around this many people at once that have not seen all of the Rocky movies. This is so strange.
I've seen all of them about 100 times, so I'm
Okay,
not
good.
that guy. Yeah.
Good.
I've
I think
seen
my dad
most
has seen
of
them.
them.
I think my dad was watching Rocky when I was being born.
Hmm.
Like my mom was like, "Stop watching Rocky. We need to go to the hospital now." And then
Oh, your dad went to the hospital?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit. See, I'm 10 years older
Yeah, it
than
was
you,
the
and my
late-
dad was like,
it was
yeah,
the late 80s.
let
by
me
the
know
time
what you
I was
had.
born, so. Yeah. But yeah, dude, Blake, I don't know if I could live anywhere else than the Northeast.
What's cool is we have the Jersey Shore too. So New Jersey actually has a bunch of different areas that kind of feel like the West Coast, but it's not as, the climate's not as consistent.
You get
might-
every season here. You get every season here. I don't want to go on too much. My favorite thing though is the people.
Yes.
And and the reason why I love the people is because we all generally leave each other alone. Like, if you're talking to someone, it's because you know them, and that's it.
You're really polite.
I don't know. I spent enough time in New York City to know that there's a lot of people talking to me that I didn't want to talk to me. In
That's New York.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why nobody makes eye contact in the Northeast. Like,
Maybe that's
unless,
my problem. Maybe that
yeah,
was
I
it.
said,
Yeah,
I
don't
said
look at
talking.
anybody.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Look at your shoes and go.
Or just straight ahead. Like, yeah.
You put on a beige
Um,
trench coat, you put on a fedora, you pull the fedora down, you walk directly into the theater, and you don't talk to anybody.
Right.
That's a
Yep.
different thing altogether.
That's a different
that you're
thing.
talking
Actually,
about.
now that
Yeah,
you
that's a
mention that,
different
that is a different thing.
But see,
Mhm.
if Eddie Murphy in this movie and Dan Aykroyd in this movie took that advice, they probably would have never met.
And,
Yeah.
would that have worked out for the better? Is this a spoiler
No.
show? Is this a
No,
spoiler
it would
show or
not.
not a spoiler
We do
show?
spoil this if they're over like a year old. We spoil them, and we usually tell people, "Hey."
If you've
Actually,
never
we
seen this
usually
movie.
forget to tell people it's a spoiler show. But while you listen to this, if you haven't watched the movie, guys, go stream it, go buy it.
That
Go
is a
watch
fair
it.
point. I actually had never seen it until last night.
Really? What?
Never.
What?
I'll save my review for deeper.
Okay.
I'd never seen it until last night. There was actually a fair bit on the list that Dan sent. And I was like,
So you
I was like,
belong on
well,
the show.
I mean, it was kind of surprising, honestly, because I do like movies. But then I realized, like, I watch a lot of weird movies.
Yeah.
Mm.
So does Dan.
Yeah, so that
Hey,
in a trench coat.
Yes.
I watched a movie where a chimpanzee walked around with a knife. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, on
that
Dan's
sounds-
recommendation.
Yes. Like, I was recommended.
Oh, same movie? Chick talks to bugs.
And the bugs talk back. No, they
Not
don't.
kidding.
I mean,
Not
to be
kidding.
fair, I just watched a movie where a gorilla mates without consent with a guy in a gorilla suit. So I don't really know that we're that far off, boys.
That is a fair point, and that was upon your
That's
guys'
comedy.
recommendation. So collective recommendation. So,
But it was a drunk Al Franken, so we'll take it.
Yeah, I don't
Now
know
that
that
you
I
mentioned it, did kind of look like Al Franken.
No, Al Franken was one of the
Al Franken, bro.
Oh, stop it!
luggage
really?
guys. Yeah.
yeah, that was Al Franken. Yeah.
No, it was Johnny Depp. No, anyway.
Oh my God.
I don't know that I'd seen
I
this
gotta go
movie all
back
the
and
way
watch
through
that.
either, guys. I've seen it on TV here
Well-
and there. I knew bits, but I'd never seen the whole thing front to back.
Well, once we get to like that part, I did mention something about that part of the movie that
Oh no.
you know we have to talk about.
You put a pin in it?
I'm gonna
For
put
now?
a pin in that
Okay.
once we get through George's notes.
Oh yeah, George, you had notes. Did you want to share any of
I
them?
was gonna say, let's slide right on into those.
Like I said, all right, so after the introduction, there's a lot of like, a lot of very rich people, and obviously they're setting it up for one of the people that is going to be trading places with someone else,
Mhm.
right? So I'm like, okay, this is high society, I get it. Let's keep going. And then Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy
Doing
does
Eddie
this
Murphy.
does the same shtick in everything
This is his
that
trope.
he's in.
This is a trope,
Yes.
but this is like one of the first times he's done this in a movie.
Okay. That's interesting.
He did 48 Hours already, but it was still in the can and didn't come out.
Okay.
So Landis heard about him and cast him. So
Okay.
this is like
Well,
the first time you're seeing
What
Eddie
I was
Murphy
going to say
on the big screen.
is that his shtick is the same shtick
Mhm.
every time. It's always good.
Yes.
It doesn't get old. Like, he doesn't get
Mhm.
old. He can continue doing that for,
And he does.
I mean, how long
For
has
a
he been doing
while.
this shtick for? It's
But it gets
still,
better. It gets better. Like he gets
So-
seasoned, if you will.
I haven't seen Eddie Murphy in a lot of movies.
Mhm.
I've seen, I forget it was the red leather,
Raw. Eddie Murphy Raw.
Raw. Is that
Yeah.
which one?
Raw.
The I got some ice
Yes.
cream and you ain't got none.
Yes, it was
'cause you're
iconic
on
back then.
welfare. You can't afford
And your
it.
dad's
you
an
can't
alcoholic.
afford. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with Eddie Murphy. Haven't seen him in a lot of movies. I know that he's in a lot of movies,
Okay.
but his shtick is wonderful.
Yes.
I love the man.
Yeah,
Like-
I loved him in Daddy Daycare. That was just a premium Eddie Murphy. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe not.
No.
I apologize. Sorry.
Way over my
Yeah,
head.
George is like, what's that?
I know. Well, you know what? That's one you can go ahead and miss.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Anyway, sorry.
80s Eddie, awesome.
Agree.
Early 90s Eddie, great. After that, And then once he plays Donkey, then he's good. But he's animated.
Oh, I have seen him in.
You saw him in Shrek.
Yeah.
Like his last good movie in the 90s was, I believe, Boomerang. And then he kind of started having kids and started doing kids movies, or he went in seclusion for a while. Then he started doing kids movies, and that's when it was like he was doing Dr. Dolittle, and I mean the Nutty Professors did really well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
They did
he was
really well.
he was
Doesn't
no
mean
longer
they were
the,
really well
Yeah.
done.
he wasn't the raunchy Eddie anymore. Like when you see him
No, right? Yeah.
in this, and you see 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3.
Coming to
He's-
America.
he's
Come
in-
on.
Coming to America, like he's in his prime
Right.
in the 80s.
Weren't we all though? Weren't we all?
I don't think George or I were. No,
I was
don't think
between
we were.
5 and 15. So
Oh, JLC was.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. We'll get there.
Agree.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Oh, also, let's rewind, go back in time. First minute, I did not know John Landis was involved in the movie
No, you didn't.
either.
We didn't tell you.
I love John Landis.
Yes, you do.
Hold on.
he's-
You didn't know that John Landis made this movie, George?
No.
Even after Richard told you last week that it's a John
Did he
Landis
say it?
movie? And
No,
I
well,
chanted
did he?
JLC, and I was like, see, it works. Wait, that's-
JL. Yeah.
My God, we had this. You
Oh, JL. Oh,
John
you
Landis,
might have
yeah.
some
Yeah.
short-term memory issues.
No,
George.
yeah, you know what? I do recall that now. I do recall that.
He heard
now.
Jamie Lee Curtis, and he was all over that. He forgot.
I
we
think
said.
that's
John Landis.
exactly what it was. Probably, I heard JLC, and then
But to
all
go
the
to
blood
your
left my brain.
when you were talking about the rich, back and forth. Like I was watching it, and I was thinking, Chris Rock does a bit about rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Michael Jordan is rich. The guy who writes Michael Jordan's checks is wealthy. And it's
Okay.
like, that's to me, they were showing Winthrop, and they were showing him and his servant and his house, his brownstone near, Rittenhouse Square,
Mm-hmm.
like all the stuff about him. And you're like, damn, he's loaded. And then they show the Dukes.
Right.
And you're like, okay, they got 30 servants. They have a 25 bedroom house,
Yeah.
and they're on the next level. So I think that was really well done, how they showed the hierarchy and how even if you're rich, you could be the low class of rich too, because you see them treat him that way too. They talk about
Who
him.
treat who that way?
The Dukes, the two old guys.
They treat Winthrop that
They
way?
talk about Winthrop like they kind of, in a rich way, they bully him because
Sure,
he's
yeah.
below them, even though he's well off as well. And he
Yeah.
makes them rich. It was well done, I think, that little setup.
Agreed.
Did you have any thoughts on their comments on class, George?
Yeah, I had lots of thoughts. I don't know how much of it I should say.
Well, the
out
whole
loud.
movie is about class.
Yeah.
I wrote down racism, classism, and socioeconomic status. I mean, that's basically the whole premise of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. It was certain parts were
Very 80s.
on the nose.
Yeah.
Like, wow, can't believe they just said that. But hey, listen, it was
Blazing Saddles had the same thing
yeah.
going on.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you could do the same thing today, even though it is like, they're just trying to
If
make a
you're-
point here.
Making fun of racists by having a character be racist, that's the way it was in the 80s. Like they basically, in movies, they were pointing out something that was going on.
Right.
And the racist was never a good person in these types of
Right.
situations. Like it was like they were almost saying, like, all the people in Blazing Saddles, people are like, oh, they couldn't be made today. But if you watch it, everybody who's racist in that movie is a buffoon.
Right.
So they are purposely doing that. They're saying, you think that's racist? Wait till you see me do racist, and I'm just going to do it on the, like you said, on the nose and in your face, which brings attention to it. Also makes fun of the racist, but it's a win-win.
Not unlike real life, where they're all buffoons. But
Right.
Yeah. Very much like real life.
It is a really interesting. I kind of knew the premise of the movie going in, but when they just kind of dive right into that, right? They don't. I mean, that's the entire idea of the movie is classism and racism, and they really just go right for it. And it was actually like, to me, like not really knowing exactly what to expect going in. I was genuinely surprised because I think some people could look at it and go, "Oh, they're taking this too lightly," but I don't think they were. I think they were really actually trying to attack it in a way that would have been acceptable for the time.
Well, I think John Landis does this a lot, because I know he does it in Coming to America too, and he does it even more polished. That whole classism thing.
Yeah,
There were just parts where I went, ooh.
well,
You're
yeah.
supposed to.
There's a lot
You're
of
supposed
cringe.
to.
Well, I think the cringe factor of this movie's probably gone up by like 40% since it was made. That's a very specific number that I
Probably,
just made up. But I think there was some cringe in the 80s, and I think as we've as our positions have changed over the last 40 years, I don't know that all of this movie is fun or good.
Well, the Dukes are never celebrated in this movie.
No.
If you notice, like, they're not the good guy ever. Like,
Well,
even
no,
before the bet.
I mean, they have the whole thing where you think the one Duke brother's a good guy for like
For a moment.
three-quarters of the
moment.
movie until you find out that he's actually just as bad, if not worse.
I wouldn't say 3/4.
Are you talking about Don Amici?
No, the other guy, the other
Okay.
brother, the one who you know he proposed the experiment. He wants to show this thing, and you're like, well, I mean, he's horrible, but like, at least he's sort of like optimistic for the potential.
He's the nurture guy.
Until you get to the scene where
he's
you
the good cop.
find out that it's a dollar bet, and you're like, ooh, that's gross. And then he's like, I'd never let a
right.
person like that run my company. Well, neither would I, And it's just like, oh no, you do suck. You're awful. Like, darn.
Yeah, but I don't have a problem with that, because that's a good reveal. Because even though you're not rooting for either of these guys, you're kind of seeing, all right, one of them is taking this to its end. Maybe the other guy might stop it.
Well, but that's
Not really
I'm just
sure.
saying
Like, it
that
kinda adds
for,
suspicion.
like, at least half the movie, you think that one of them is the optimistic ideologue, and the other guy is just cynical and horrible. And then you find out they're both cynical and horrible, and it's fine.
I think there's plenty of information along the way, though, that could. I was like, man, this guy is not.
Yeah.
There's something fishy.
He's
going
doing
on here.
subtle. He's doing the subtle homework, as I would say, in the acting world. He was doing a lot of subtle deliveries of lines. We've talked about it before, where you take the line and you play with it. You can tell he was kind of showing there was more to what he was doing. And
Well,
you can watch it at face value.
Yeah, anybody who's willing to destroy one man's life and artificially enhance another one's life for the sake of science is obviously a bad guy.
Yeah.
But
It wasn't.
their characterization changes for him when he reveals his like true nature or whatever at the end
I
of the
think
movie.
they revealed that so that you didn't feel bad at all when they were about to lose all their money.
Yeah.
Because you would kind of feel bad for the good one.
Would you though? Because I mean, he just destroyed a guy's life and then artificially.
I don't know that I watched this movie thinking either of them was the good one.
He didn't really destroy his life. He just put his life on pause.
This is how I interpreted it.
Right.
With the two brothers. When they were talking back and forth, there's the psychology, nature versus nurture debate, right? How much of who you are and how you turn out is, based on your genetics, and how much of it is based on your
choices.
Environment,
right? Environment. So you had one brother that was nature, and he was the one that we all hated from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the other brother who was arguing that, nurture, take this other guy, take some guy that's, totally put him in this situation,
and he will shine.
And he will.
Right.
Because they're just like two opposite ends of the argument.
Right.
What I thought through the whole movie was, the nurture guy, who is supposedly the better of the two, he was all about the bet. I don't even think it was science, right? I think
was about being
he
right.
believed that science or whatever, but I really think his number one was just winning the bet, which was for $1. So they're both crappy.
The amount
It was
is
just
of no
about
issue.
winning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Right. It was just about
competition.
the bet. That's how I saw it. He just cared about the bet. He just wanted to be right. That's it.
Right.
That's how I viewed it.
And they're brothers, so right, it's like extra competition. It was all about competition, not
Exactly.
really about, as you could say, like they even set it up like, oh, same amount as before. Like we've done this before with
Yes.
some other stupid thing, you know.
Mm.
In their minds, to them it was stupid. Who knows how many other lives they wrecked previous to this, you know.
Right.
I saw them both as kind of like political parties.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Like Don Amici's character, who was the, and this is 80s commentary, I would say it. But
Okay.
I'd have to pick John Landis's brain to find, or whoever wrote it, to find out what they meant. But I kind of looked at them two as two sides of the same coin. And the one Don Amici character is kind of like the Republican, you know, looking down on everyone that's not him
Mm-hmm.
mentality. And then the other guy was like, I'm better and bigger and more important than all these people, but I'm going to give them what they need to survive and kind of, you know, work for their issues and whatever, but they're going to be under me. They have to support me because I'm giving them what they want. So I kind of looked at it as they were, and I could be completely off, but you know how some people say I'm not affiliated to any party because they're both crap. That's the way I looked at it. Like
yeah.
it was like,
I'm
you know,
familiar with that idea. Yeah.
they were both not good people. They both had different ideology, but they had the same thought process and result,
Interesting.
basically. That's the way I watched it this time. I never thought of that in the 80s, obviously. I was too young.
I don't
In
know.
the 90s, I just saw boobs, so I was like, oh, that's awesome.
I don't
You're
know
like,
that this
"Ew."
movie really has like a political underpinning, though. I mean, it only had like at least 2 pictures of Ronald Reagan in there. I'm sure that was just a coincidence.
Right, and then the whole drug thing. I wrote down
I'm kidding.
Dan's
it was all
80s
political,
drug.
man.
Oh, right. I wrote down Dan's.
It's like I'm sitting here like, what?
I underlined it. Dan's 80s drugs theory in full effect.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, he must be
Everything
on
was
drugs.
drugs.
That guy just
Are you
robbed a
on
bank.
dope?
He must be on drugs. That guy.
Drugs, right. Everybody's on drugs.
Ugh, yikes. I mean, everybody was on drugs in the 80s, though, right?
That's true.
That's
Well,
my
yeah.
recollection from what people have told me.
Everyone's always on drugs. Let's not sugarcoat it.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, it's not a decade thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the clothes in the 80s. You know everybody was doing something. I mean, really.
Man, we need to go back to the 80s.
It would be pretty
Fuck.
funny if 4 people in the 80s who were high on drugs, the bright colored clothes that are so garish actually looked pretty like mundane. And that the only way you could survive the 80s would be to inhibit your senses with drugs. That would be kind of funny.
As somebody who remembers watching the very first music video on MTV, we made fun of the clothes and hair back then as well. That's why I love Wedding Singer, because the Wedding Singer kind of it was the inner commentary of me when I was a kid. Like, you know, take that glove off, man. You look ridiculous.
But Mickey is
And
so
it's-
fine. He's so
Right.
fine, he'll blow your mind.
Yes, sir.
Or Ricky, you know, if it's the Weird Al version. What's up?
Can we talk about Frank Oz?
You want to?
Who's Frank Oz?
All right. So when Winthrop goes to the police station
Mm-hmm.
and they lay his shit out on the table and they
Mhm.
tell him, you know, shut your mouth, I'm going to rip you a new asshole kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The weenie cop, the one with the glasses and the balding head,
Mm-hmm.
when he says, it's an opera, that's Frank Oz.
Okay.
So Frank Oz is an icon. Should be an icon in your world, but you don't know why he's an icon.
yeah,
Okay.
no.
So Frank Oz is the voice of many Muppets.
Oh.
So when you hear his voice, the first thing he says, I always hear Fozzie Bear.
Okay.
He's the voice of Fozzie Bear. He's the voice of Miss Piggy. He's the voice of Yoda.
Okay.
So
Cookie Monster.
Cookie Monster. Like, he's
Grover, Super
Grover,
Grover,
a fucking
heck yeah.
icon. And he pops
and
up
this
in,
is where the Sesame Street comes
yes,
in.
but he pops up in every Landis movie. He's in American Werewolf as well.
Okay.
And American Werewolf. So I'm watching it, and I knew he was in it, and he's actually directed a few of my favorite movies as well. So he's like one of my favorite people. But I'm like, I wonder if George is going to recognize his voice, because the first words he says, I mean, it's uncanny. Like you know that's a Muppet,
Right.
and you missed it.
No, I totally missed it.
But yeah, his little deliveries when he's like, what was the name of the play? When he's like, it's Bohème,
La Boheme.
Bohème, and he's like, it's Bohème. He's like, it's an opera. Like he's just like so making fun of him, because Dan Aykroyd plays that part perfect.
Yeah.
Like, and to see him play Elwood, I mean, you watched him in Blues Brothers, so
Yeah.
you're seeing him play both ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you're not a Dan Aykroyd fan after this, then I don't know what to do for you. But yeah, that's our Sesame Street connection.
And
Strike us.
Very good.
Speaking of people who were in the movie that George should have recognized, did you recognize the pawnbroker where
Oh my
he's
God.
like, "Hey, that watch is worth,
Yeah.
$7,000.
It's $50.
50 bucks.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Bo Diddley, man."
It's Bo King Diddley.
Mm-hmm.
No,
No,
did not recognize.
Oh man,
I'm just gonna check. No, did not recognize.
Yeah,
You know what I would be terrible at?
the match game.
Like, if I witnessed something like a horrible crime and the cops were like, "What'd the guy look like?" I'm
You look like
"I
Tom
don't know.
Atkins."
I don't know. He
You're
looked
face
like
blind,
like
bro.
a guy.
you have face blindness.
Yeah.
Ay,
Well,
man.
he looked like a guy. I don't know.
To be fair, I wouldn't have recognized him as Bo Diddley had I not seen in the credits. I was like, oh, Bo Diddley's in this. And then so I was looking for him.
Yeah, like he's not BB King. Like he's recognizable, but he's, if it was Louis Armstrong or Aretha Franklin, you're gonna see that person, you're gonna recognize him right away. Bo Diddley's he's not obscure, but he's also
Yeah.
not a prominent face.
If he's not
And-
playing that rectangle guitar in front
Right,
of your face,
right.
you're not going to recognize him right away.
It's
Right.
One other fun name that popped up in this movie is Darth Vader's dad, Robert Earl
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and he's in this the same year that he's in an American classic called Sleepaway Camp. Hell of an 83 for Darth Vader's dad.
There's another familiar face that pops up for you, Dan. You should you probably don't know who she is, but the voice of Harley Quinn, since you're Bat Dan, the Arlene Sorkin, her name is, like the animated Batman series.
Oh, Sorkin was in this?
huge.
Where was she? I didn't see her.
She was at the party.
Oh, okay.
She was like a featured prostitute. But when I saw her, as soon as I saw her face and I heard her voice, I was like, oh, that's, way before she was the voice. I don't remember when the cartoons came out, probably late 80s, 88, 89.
I think
So-
I think that was a 90s thing. I think that was a solid early.
Was it
to
right
mid-90s.
after the Burton Batman? So like 90, 91.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like 90,
Mhm.
91, 92, somewhere in there. We
Okay,
could look it up, but
so-
it's more fun to just say dates. 92, 98,
92.
2001.
I think you're right, Dan. I think it's 92.
I remember sitting on my mom's bed looking at the clock radio tick away seconds until time to watch the first Batman episode. I was excited.
1992. I just verified.
Boom.
There we go.
Travis is usually good with dates,
It's got to be
but
movies.
he
though.
has plus or minus a
year.
year for every decade ago it happened.
Unless it's
So-
iconic. Like
That's
some of
fair.
them you know.
So if it's 1992, that's
Alien 3,
what, 30 years ago,
30 years ago, yeah.
right? So he's plus or minus 3 on his guess.
Batman Returns came out in 92. I'm very good with movies that came out when I was working at the movie theater, because I can tell you exactly what year that came out.
I can't tell you what year it is now.
Like 93, that was Jurassic
It's,
Park. It was huge.
Yeah.
It's 2022
Huge.
now.
Okay.
2022.
Sure. Huh? Where are we? What is that?
And the other face I saw that he plays, is it Beaks? The
I
CI
recognize him immediately. Yeah.
He's the principal from Breakfast Club.
Yep.
You'll see him, but he's his name's Paul, I think, Gleason. He is iconic in the 80s too. Just to see him pop up, and I totally forgot that he played that part. But he's all over the 80s, so you're going to see him everywhere.
Okay.
Well, and you've already seen him in Die Hard.
Yes.
He's
Yeah, he
like
was
one
in
of the out of uniform cops from the local department who fights it out with the FBI guys.
Okay.
His best line is when he's like, "Fuck off," when that person's like when he's near the payphone when he's talking on the phone, and he's like, "Hold on, fuck off."
That's the Northeast, baby.
Oh my god, I wrote it down. I laughed so hard. It was like I wrote down, "Hold on, ... fuck off."
Yeah, he takes the time.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
He takes the time to pause, tell her to fuck off, get back to this. I love how like
to
when
be
someone
fair, that lady was annoying me.
Yeah,
she's like
why was she
standing
there.
Like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna be on the phone for a while. Like, leave me alone. This is a little bit of a sidebar, but why that was personally annoying to me is I spend a lot of time on the phone, and I'm a pacer, so I'm walking around my neighborhood a lot.
Yeah.
And some of my neighbors have not figured out that, like, and I'm not in headphones or anything. I'm literally holding my phone up to my face for the reason of letting everyone know I'm on the phone.
Mhm.
And people still try to come up and talk to me. It's one thing if my wife runs up like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave real quick." Okay, cool.
Right.
Like, but it's some random neighbor's like, "So the weather's real nice today." Like, I'm on the phone.
You have a
don't need to
neighbor,
discuss
at least
this.
one, right now recording a podcast, and he's like, I saw that crazy neighbor today who walks around pretending he's on the phone all the time. Wouldn't even give me the time of day. How rude.
Yeah, but he's only got 4 listeners.
I just don't, you see somebody, even if they're pretending, that's a signal. Leave that person alone. I'm just throwing it out there.
I do it at work. I'll do that all the time.
In the Northeast, you pretend to be on the phone so you don't get jumped.
Yeah.
How does that help you?
You just physically describe everyone you walk by.
Well, if you're on the phone, like whoever you're on the phone with, you know what I mean? Like they know, they know where you are. Like it's just someone's
Some
on the
people
other
get
line.
jumped because they're on the phone because they're not paying attention.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
I think I'm going to bet you guys $1 that you should walk around in Philadelphia for the next 2 weeks, both of you separately on your phones, and we'll see who gets jumped.
Science experiment.
Yeah.
You might have to walk for a while before either of us get jumped.
Philly now or Philly in '83? Because I'm not walking around Philly now at all.
It's not bad. Is it
They
bad?
don't really punish crime there anymore, so I'm a little nervous to go over there.
Okay.
They don't prosecute much. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, why would you?
I would say you have to kill. You have to kill somebody to get prosecuted, but that doesn't happen either in Philly.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I've never heard of a murder occurring in Philadelphia. That's
No, at least
unheard
not.
of.
Oh wait, one just happened. Oh wait, another one just happened.
It's like one of those tickers. Like every 8 seconds, someone dies in Philadelphia.
Yeah, we have the CNN COVID ticker for murders in Philly.
I do have a friend who works in intensive care there, and it's terrifying sounding. I'm like, you got to get a new job. Like that.
Yeah,
sounds
my
rough.
sister works in the trauma unit in Camden, so she
Actually,
sees some stuff.
Camden is worse. I don't know about now, but Camden was worse than Philly, and Camden's right on the other side of the river from Philadelphia.
Well, what they did in Camden was they leveled like 4 blocks and built a super police station right in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
So they pushed everything out.
Like how like Detroit has a reputation for being very, very dangerous, right? Camden,
never.
statistically,
Camden trumps that.
Camden statistically, at least like in the early 2000s, was worse than Detroit.
I think Philly's beating Camden now.
Per capita. I I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Anyways,
that's
this is
so
depressing.
That's so low.
Yeah,
Trading
this-
places.
This is great.
well, I mean, it kind of goes into the social economics situation. In
It
real
sure
life.
does.
Helicopter took off. Go ahead. What part of town are you worried about?
Can you believe how they treated Eddie Murphy when he bumped into what's his face?
That
Akroyd?
I
Winthrop.
wanted to believe that wasn't based in reality, that was played up for the movie, but I know that probably
could happen.
wasn't. That could happen.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Like the problem was, and he was grandstanding, like Akroyd, like he was doing that in the police station too. Did you see that? He just threatened me.
Right.
Like it's like, again, the classism. They're gonna believe me over you because I have 4 credit cards in my wallet, and you're out here on a fake cart saying you're crippled and blind.
Right.
So it's kind of like he felt entitled.
And to
He
a
knew he was
degree,
bigger.
like like the whole fake cart blind thing. Like you are running a scam, so you
Mhm.
are openly being dishonest. So I can understand why somebody would distrust you there. But at the same time, I can't stand those people who are like, "Did you see? They grazed my shoulder."
Right.
Like, come
Well,
on, man.
they kind of play both. They do it well because they show Eddie Murphy do that with his own friends that night, like the next night. Like they come back to not his house, but the house he was just trying to steal shit from.
That's his house, man.
The day prior.
That's his
no,
house,
but I mean,
yeah.
it was they gave it to him, but like the day prior, they're like, you don't have to steal anything. You live here. This is your
Yeah,
stuff.
this is all your stuff.
So, but once it was his stuff, now he's judgmentally looking
Yeah.
at his people.
Yeah.
So it's like they purposely did that.
Absolutely.
That scene
watching
with- yeah.
watching the transition of Eddie
Yeah.
Murphy become
It
highfalutin.
happened a little fast. That should have been like a week that went by before he did that party. That would have been more realistic. Same thing with the relationship between Curtis and she's always comes up with this. Her relationship with Akroyd was fast, quick, or it got intimate quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was sick and she got in bed with him.
She's like, "Oh, you don't feel well. Time to get intimate."
That's something that would probably happen over a couple weeks. But Landis does that. Like in American Werewolf in London, that guy David was in her house within hours of being discharged from the hospital.
Yes.
So he doesn't worry about a timeline.
I wonder if that speaks to Landis's desires. A little bit.
Probably.
Just throwing it out there.
I'm glad that Landis doesn't worry about timelines because at the end of the movie, there's a point where there's like 5 minutes to go before they open. And I thought he was going to make me sit there for 5 minutes while he built tension. So if he'll skip a couple of minutes to make the story go faster, I'll take it.
No,
I'll
I agree.
take
It moves fast, but it just seemed weird.
I enjoyed how Eddie Murphy delivered some of the lines when he was like in the middle of his transition. Like,
he stopped himself from cursing a few times.
Yeah, like when he's in the cat or when he's in the limousine and right across is I keep forgetting his name.
Dan Akroyd.
It's Akroyd, but
yeah.
Anyways, he's
Winthrop.
Like Winthrop. He's like that's the dude that busted me. And he was about to say that's the motherfucker that busted me, right? He's like, and that's the gentleman that busted me, but he still used the word bust, like.
Yeah, he's like when your woman wants to make love, like it's classic.
I just love that
Murphy,
he didn't change the word busted. Like busted was a word that a rich person would use. You know what I mean?
I experienced that. I was in Atlantic City and this homeless guy was walking with this homeless woman, and they're walking and they're kind of talking really loud. I had to go to my car, so I was kind of trying to stay away because I wasn't. They kind of sounded like they were fighting.
Yeah,
and
you
I
weren't
get
making
involved.
eye contact.
Right, I wasn't making eye contact.
You don't know them. Yep.
And she starts yelling, "Come on, I want to make love, motherfucker!" And I was like, "Wait, she didn't say fuck, but she said motherfucker. She said I want to make love."
Well, yeah.
You would think somebody who says motherfucker would say I want to fuck.
You just
So it
aren't
was like
paying enough attention to the nuance of what she's looking for, Travis.
Those are two different things.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
I want to make love.
She was like, "I want to make love, motherfucker." I laughed out loud, and they heard me laugh, but it was just so funny. Oh,
That's good.
Hilarious. That's good radio.
I mean, if they're unhoused, though, they're like at home. So it's not even that
Yeah, I
inappropriate.
don't know if they were homeless, but they definitely didn't look like they were.
You're in
They
their
weren't.
living room at that point, man.
Yeah, they weren't the Dukes. They look like they were carrying a few days worth of clothes with them. Let's put
Yeah,
it
the
that way.
Dukes only make love to the people under them who they screw over with their horrible
Right.
behavior. You.
Ugh.
Interesting that we never saw a significant other of the Dukes in the film at all.
No
I'm sure they're on their
humanizing
third
them, man.
marriage. Yeah, you don't want
Is-
to humanize them.
Or is it just because nobody would want to be married to anyone like that?
I guarantee you that. Well, no, if they're on their third wife, they wouldn't have enough money to have that big house. So they're probably, I don't know. Maybe no one's ever been with them. They would have had kids.
What I saw was someone that is so selfish that would not have any time for any other
Right.
human being at all.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's true.
I kind of didn't like anybody in this movie except for Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Ophelia. I liked Ophelia. She was a capitalist and had a plan. All the rest of them, gross.
Yeah.
I mean, Eddie Murphy's lovable,
Coleman
right?
was good. I liked Coleman.
Yeah,
the
Coleman's
butler.
all right,
Yeah.
but
Coleman's
it's
but he was involved in the whole setup.
yeah, he let them
Yeah,
all
but
go through the experiment, and then even at
you
the
don't
end,
know what they said to him. Like you don't know what his pay is. They might have
Yeah.
said we're gonna set you up. Like I
You
don't know.
still- I
I
mean-
would
So
have
This
I don't
would've
know.
gone
So
up.
the guy you're serving loyally for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden somebody calls you and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna double your pay or whatever." Just pretend like you don't know who he is when he comes to the
Mhm.
door. You're
I don't know,
dirty.
but they
You're dirty
kinda
if you're doing that.
they purposely show that Coleman and
I got a what's it? I got a Die Hard vibe from
what?
all of the working class people in this movie.
Okay.
All the people working for the rich people were all rolling their eyes constantly.
Yes.
That's
But
true.
after what Blake's saying, it kind of makes sense. The very beginning, like that opening credit is very important. They show, like you've never seen the movie Arthur, but
No.
Arthur is a rich person like Winthrop.
Okay.
Or the Dukes. But he loves his butler. It's kind of like Bruce Wayne and Alfred.
I was just gonna say it's like Bruce Wayne.
Father-son type situation.
Yeah.
They play off of each other really well. There's obviously a love and respect there. Even though one's a servant, you can tell there's a lot to the story there. Maybe he served his parents, Arthur's parents, and then his parents died, and then he kind of inherited Arthur.
Right.
This situation, from the get-go, they show discontent. They show, like, when Winthrop stands outside after being served the whole morning,
Mm-hmm.
stands outside and waits, like stares at Coleman to open his car door.
Right.
Like you can tell there was just, if someone came to me and I was Coleman in that situation, they
Mhm.
said, listen, we're going to give you another 6 figures, or we're going to set your family up, or we're going to do whatever if you just play along for a week. I'm doing that shit. If I have that relationship with my guy. They didn't have a relationship, you can tell. He made him breakfast and he drove him to work, and that was it.
Right. And so if you're the servant in this situation and you have disdain for the person that you're serving, then if someone says, "Hey, we're going to fuck with that guy that you don't like," it's like you don't have to pay me anymore. Like
Yeah.
I'll just do it.
That's
It's
true.
cool.
And they
that's fair.
purposely made Dan Aykroyd's character such a shit. Like, you
Right.
could see he was a shit to his friends. He was a shit to his girlfriend. He was a shit to his butler, his coworkers.
there
Like,
wasn't
he didn't
really there wasn't a lot of room for subtlety in the character development in this movie.
But was that on
No.
purpose is the question. Like, I think Landis and the writer did not want anybody to be liked because they were going to screw with so many people. So it was like the only
Mission
one you're supposed to like.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Wasn't Akroyd the writer primarily? If I remember the credits correctly.
Did he co-write?
No, it's written
Or-
by Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod.
What am
Okay.
I thinking of? Oh, I'm losing my mind.
I mean, Aykroyd co-wrote Ghostbusters, I believe.
And I liked
Right.
everybody in that movie.
I think you're supposed to. I honestly believe that, unlike Halloween 3, where all the characters could die tomorrow and I didn't give a shit because they were all kind of bad, I don't know if they were purposely written that way. This movie, I think they were purposely written.
Which
for
character
you
do
not
you
to
think
like
I
them.
was supposed to like in the movie where the one lady's probably a robot the whole time and the other guy abandons his family to buy beer and hang
Exactly.
out with the... It's the same thing. Only in this case, you're digging it and I'm not as much.
Well, I don't know.
I don't
funny.
have any problems with
I
a
think-
movie
I
where
think-
you're supposed to hate every character.
Yeah, I think it successfully did what it was supposed to do. You're
Yeah.
supposed to like Eddie Murphy, and you were supposed to like Jamie Lee Curtis,
and you
then
were supposed to like the
Aykroyd
fact that Aykroyd
redeemed himself
Yeah,
and
mhm.
pulled himself out of that world. So I
Yes.
think at the very end, those 3 people and Coleman, they successfully did what they were supposed to do. You were supposed to hate the right people.
Did they succeed though? Because in the end, all they do is like break securities laws by doing insider trading just to spite a guy and get rich. Like that's still not exactly
And
redeeming, is it?
Did you guys find it weird? I found this part especially weird. Like, this is supposed to be, I think, a feel-good type of situation. Like, look at this happy ending we all have, and now we all have minority butlers, like that we used to be like. I don't know, that ending, like that part at the ending. I was like, I don't know. Granted, they didn't seem to treat them as badly, but it was or not. They didn't seem to treat him badly at all, I should say. But I was
So I
like,
didn't read them as butlers. I read them. They're on the islands. I believe they're probably just people in the wherever they're living that are working. Like people
well,
work.
butler works. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, it's like when you're on the islands, it's going to be hard to find a white butler because
I'm not
most of the-
suggesting that they need to be of a particular color. It just seems
Right.
like oh, now we are just like the ones that
Yeah.
we tried to tear down.
yes,
I don't know.
no, that I see, but again, I'm thinking 80s mentality was the bad ones. You have the capitalists and then you have the crony capitalists. The bad ones got their comeuppance, and the everyday man prevailed. I think that's what the moral of the story was. We don't know if they're philanthropists and they're giving away their money and they're starting orphanages. I don't know. Maybe that's Trading Places too. I'm just saying.
Maybe the Dukes had some like orphanages on the side, and now all those kids
Yeah,
are
we
gonna
don't know.
starve because
Yeah.
the
Well-
bad guys from this movie just stole all their
Well,
money.
I'm gonna say that there's another movie down the road that establishes that that's not true.
But is it
I'm gonna
canon?
say the pigs fly. I mean, I guess we can say whatever we want.
Yeah.
Wait.
The world
No,
is
I
crazy.
I don't know. I felt like I liked so many elements of this movie, but like I got done watching it, and I got to be honest. I don't know if this is maybe I'm jumping the gun here because I don't know your guys' format as well as I should have. But I got all done with that movie, and I was like, okay, I didn't really need to watch that movie.
Yeah, yeah, same.
Well, George has that thing pretty much every week.
Okay.
That's generally how I feel about movies.
We watch 75 movies, and I think he
Like
liked 10
it's
of
got to
them.
be a really good movie for me to be like, wow, that I'm gonna watch that again. You know, I
Mhm.
never say that. It's got to be a really good movie.
Yeah, like I only watched that. I've been told I needed to watch that movie for years. It was one of those classics, right? People are like,
Mhm.
"What are you doing? What do you mean you haven't seen Trading Places?" And I was like, "Okay, this is an excuse to fire up one of these classics that I only have a passing interest in."
Hmm.
And I got done with it, and my wife watched it with me, and we both were like,
Meh.
"Eh,
Yeah.
eh." I wish we would have watched that one thing that we've been wanting to watch. You know, that type of thing.
That's how I feel when I watch a few movies that Dan recommends, because I'm like I don't if it's something I don't choose to sit down and watch, then it becomes work. It becomes a chore. It becomes something that you have to do.
I was excited about it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a great excuse to watch this movie that I've been told I need to watch forever. I
That might
just
have been
got-
part of the hype though. Like if it was hyped up that much, like I'm the nostalgic guy. Like I love this movie for nostalgic reasons. I remember sitting down with my dad when I was like 12, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm watching an adult movie." You know, not an adult movie, but like
That's a different
movie
podcast.
for
Different
grown-ups.
podcast.
Yeah.
Different podcast.
a movie with that I shouldn't be watching at 13, but my dad's let me watch it. Like it was kind of like a rite of passage kind of thing.
Was it your birthday that day?
I don't know why.
Because first you were 12 and then you were 13.
Oh, whatever. Seriously.
It's like the knife.
Seriously.
The
Yeah.
knife
So-
that was 10 inches and then all of a sudden it was 11 inches.
So
and now
Travis
it's
is
17
14
inches.
watching this movie with his dad.
I think if I
Yes.
watched
So
Did I say
Travis
12 and
Travis
13?
is 15.
all right. I was how old was I? Oh, I was that old.
He just flipped me off.
I was 1.
Oh, man.
Anyway, yeah, if I watched this today for the first time, I probably wouldn't, other than some of the funny, I probably wouldn't have liked it. But
Okay.
nostalgic Travis loves this
It
movie.
was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
But there's a lot of stuff like, but any movie back then, like if you watch The Toy, if you watch, what's the one, Stir Crazy, like there's a lot of movies back then that, the whole not the whole 9 yards. What was the one with Burt Reynolds? Yeah, the whole 9 yards. Like all these movies, that there's redeeming qualities in bad people. By the end, you get to see a change, or maybe you get to see a bad guy get his comeuppance from somebody who might not be perfect,
Mhm.
but they're less bad than the other guy. Like that's just what the 80s were. Today, this world is totally different. Now it's like, oh, I won't even bring it up, but the people overanalyze or they project their own lives on 30-year-old movies, and it's like, just fucking watch it. Like, it's just, if you don't like it, fine. And that's what this podcast is about, because there's a lot of movies that you aren't going to like.
I have the complete. I don't agree with Blake on this at all. I thought this movie was funny. I thought, like, if I want to laugh, I'm gonna watch this movie again. And I don't watch movies more than
Like,
once.
I think this is better than Blues Brothers.
I agree.
But I know why Dan would like Blues Brothers more, because of the music, and which I
Heck
love
yeah,
it for
man.
as well. But
If
Blues
this movie
Brothers
had Duck
makes
Dunn, I would have been all about it.
Blues Brothers gets crazy almost at the opening credits. This movie waits until the train, and then you can do without.
Yeah.
But for the 80s kid, I guess I was 14.
You're 14 now,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm 14 now. I wrote down, the whole train scene is crazy. It's not really necessary, but there's so much gold in there. Like, there's so much stuff, quotable stuff, that when I was growing up made my dad laugh. Like, classic Eddie Murphy, beef jerky time, like that whole.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for the record, we're not gonna quote any of that scene on this podcast, right?
Right. But it's classic, and yeah, there's a lot of things in there that need to go for today's audience, but
Right.
for the time, we had a sense of humor. Like, we were brought up on Sam Kinison, Rodney Dangerfield, Andrew Dice Clay, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. Like, we weren't offended as much.
I like all of these comedians you've named.
I think all the people you just referenced, other than Richard Pryor, all those people were famous after this movie came out. So
Yeah,
that's kind of fun.
but what do you mean?
Well, it's just because this movie predates all those guys. So, like, they're,
Yes,
they're
it
almost
does.
two different eras by about 6 or 8 years.
But without this movie, you don't get a lot of that stuff.
So what you're saying was John Landis was a visionary.
I don't think Kinison had anything to do with this movie. Kinison would have been Kinison without this 100%.
Kinison, I never saw in blackface,
Okay.
I just thought that was completely unnecessary. And not just, like, unnecessary because, I'm in the 2020s and we don't do that anymore.
Jimmy Fallon did it. Jimmy Kimmel did, like, very recently, because
But I'm just saying it's unnecessary because it literally added nothing to the plot because they already had the briefcase transferred. Like, I was just like, this movie has lost. That's when I checked out the most, I think, because they successfully got the other briefcase
right.
to Dan Akroyd, who you don't see. And then he shows up in their thing and brings it back and gets caught. And it's just like, they just did this so that gorilla would bang that dude.
Which is funnier to say than to watch, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Comedians would do that. Eddie Murphy dressed up on Saturday Night Live multiple times as a white guy. A lot of the guys on Saturday Night Live played multiple races. Like, it was just kind of a theater thing, and it wasn't meant to be offensive, because everybody kind of was an equal opportunity offender. So it was like, okay, today they're going to make fun of this guy, and they're going to everybody was just a little bit more laid back then, and they weren't so high strung and bug up their ass about everything.
Yeah.
So it was like, and it comes all the way to the 2000s, because Jimmy Kimmel was doing it, Jimmy Fallon, I think Daryl Hammond did it a few times. I think Robert Downey Jr. almost won an Oscar by doing it. So it's like, it happened, and we need to move on. Blackface sucked for the time period that it sucked, but I don't think anybody, even Dan Akroyd, looked at that as blackface for the time. I'm sure they look back at it now and they're like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. But for the time, and that's where this movie is aged badly.
Sure.
I think so. The I guess quote unquote controversial sections of this movie are not why I was lukewarm on it. Like, I got pretty thick skin, and I feel like I can be pretty objective in my observations, especially when it pertains to different time periods. I just legitimately was like, I wasn't overwhelmed, I wasn't underwhelmed, I was whelmed. I give it a C. Like, I was just like, this movie's fine. I don't know why everyone told me I had to watch it. Like, it's fine. I would never tell anybody they have to watch it. I do understand its importance. I do understand what it was trying to say, I think. I just thought it was just an okay movie.
I think
overall.
everybody says that because the same reason why I would say, like, when a movie like Coming to America comes out and it kind of fixes a lot of the things that this movie did wrong.
Maybe it's because I saw that first.
Yeah, people kind of, because they're showing a culture in a good light. They're showing, they're showing the same socioeconomic issues and the classism and the racism, but they're doing it in a different way. I just think John Landis got better at it.
Which you should, over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I just ask you, like, a storyline clarification? They're on an Amtrak train at New Year's with a bunch of people in costumes. It's
Mhm.
like Terror Train, but without the terror, except for that guy that gets boned by a gorilla.
It's probably better in Terror Train too, but yes.
Why on earth? No. Terror Train is wonderful, and also might be a good follow-up for this. Anyway,
Possible.
here's the thing that I don't understand. When you're making this movie, I don't understand why Dan Akroyd, who has in his possession the thing that they need, the MacGuffin to get through the scene,
Mm-hmm.
why he even enters their car. But I also don't understand why, when you're on a train full of people in costume, why you have all your characters pretend to be in regular clothes, but actually in costume, right? Like, it's an interesting, I think maybe the script needed another pass, right? Because you could have the same scene where Jamie Lee Curtis comes in dressed as Supergirl, Dan Akroyd comes in dressed as a Ghostbuster, Hardy. I know that's, out of sequence, but you know what I mean. Halloween costumes. They're on a thing covered in Halloween costumes. So why does each one pretend to be like an ethnic minority instead of just put on a costume? Seems like a lot of.
It's a good question.
It's just
It would have even made more sense if they were in those costumes but not speaking with accents.
Yeah, I mean, they could just be in costume. That would be fine.
Right.
Those exact costumes, except for the one,
Right.
it'd be fine, right? The one you really probably ought to think about, but I realized at the time it was probably not as cringy as it is today. But like,
Yeah, no, you're right.
it's weird, and maybe it was an attempt at broad comedy, like, haha, they could just be in costumes, but instead they're gonna be, whatever.
I think that's what it was.
It's
It
a head
was-
scratcher, man.
It was an attempt to like let's just make the general person in the audience who maybe has missed the greater point of this movie to get a laugh, and
Right.
that is a mechanism that they were using at the time. And maybe that's I'm with you. I was like, well, this is an interesting angle, and I'm like really trying to pretend that I'm living in 1983. And I'm going like, I still don't really understand why that's any better for the quality of the overall story. But maybe it was just like a Hail Mary, like, well, let's try to get, good old Uncle Ted to laugh at something in this movie. I don't know what it is.
Hey, can we talk about JLC?
I was going to see how long
Are we
going
gonna
to
get to this?
No.
Please?
No, I thought we were going to wrap it up.
No, we cannot wrap it up.
I mean, she's the reason you watched this movie, right? Because it's Jamie
is
Lee
true.
Christmas.
I literally said, and Dan in Post probably had a field day with this, that I love JLC because of how classy she is.
Is that what you said?
That is what I said last
Wow.
week when she had her scene.
Oh,
in
right.
the
Prom
movie
night,
last
right,
week?
Right.
And I can't imagine, like, now I can't imagine, like, what the conversation must have been like. Like, if JLC is the way or was the way I thought she was,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of her being on screen and topless, like, how they would have to pitch that to her if she was, like, like, listen, you're, this scene has it's a couple topless scenes in here, but it's very classy. Don't worry.
Right. It's artsy.
You're a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, okay, but don't worry, it's very classy. Eddie Murphy's in the movie. Okay. Like,
Yeah. Where's the good part?
I'm like,
Like, where's the classy part? Yeah.
exactly.
No, I hear you.
So
I don't remember it being this, I don't want to say revealing. I do remember the first one,
Mm-hmm.
the first time. I totally forgot about the second time when Dan was like told me twice. I was like, oh wait, what? And I totally forgot about the when he was sick scene.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I think it's the best scene in the movie, and here's why, right? It's on this accelerated John Landis timeline thing. It doesn't necessarily track, but she's the first person to show like genuine human concern for Winthrop. And it's this opportunity for him to finally, like, you know, for no reason other than, you know, protecting her investment or whatever, but for no reason other than she cares about him in some way. You know, it's not sexually motivated. It's not money motivated. It is literally her embracing his humanity. So I think it's a beautiful scene. I don't know why she had to get her clothes off, though.
Right.
I was gonna say, like,
that's what I was thinking.
Much like the train scene. I think you're right, Dan. But much like the train scene, and it's like, this is where I stand by. Like, I think Landis is just going for like, you know, like, it's like a very like that didn't need to happen type scenario. For that particular moment. Like, it was otherwise kind of like a tender, touching, like, character development scene. And it was just like, hey, JLC, while you're at it. you know?
For me, it would have made more of an impact if she got into that bed completely clothed, like a mother would.
Right.
And just kind of, you know, laid next to him and just they had that same conversation.
Well,
but her being naked kind of changed the dynamic of that scene.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the whole point was because he was in her bed, right? Because he was sick, right? And like the first thing or the end of the scene when they first come into her apartment is that, you know, she's talking about how everything costs money, like money costs money, or food costs money, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and that's not the only thing.
Right.
And that's why you sleep on the couch. Door slams. Right? So yeah, that's exactly what the scene was. He's in her bed and she's like genuinely feeling something like human emotions for him, not just like a money investment anymore, but like a, you know,
it really
like
wasn't that much money invested, was it? How much?
5 figures.
Oh, that's
10
right.
grand.
Yeah, that's
so. I mean, in a way, it's still her just. It's just transactional if you want to read it that way, but she acts it in like it's written in a way that you could take it as transactional, but the way that she acts it, and the thing is, she's so good in this. Everything she does in this movie is so, it just feels genuine, and it's a character we've never seen her play, but she's so good. Like, there's a reason I was like, yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, we should do a series on her, not just because George likes her, but because she's so good and so versatile in every role she plays.
After seeing many interviews of her over the 4 decades, she's always, even if she's doing this, she's always she makes sure that she plays a strong woman in control.
Yeah.
So, and there are other movies where she is sexualized. She's a beacon of sexuality.
Sure.
But she's always in control, and she's never taken advantage of. She's never this or that. So I think she was trying to change Hollywood in a way.
And what you just said is the reason why, even though I have now seen what I thought I probably would never see.
Yeah. It's a Nev Campbell
what you
thing.
just said is the reason why I still I can still respect this actress and like this actress.
Plus,
and love this actress.
I think this was her Disney out of Disney moment. Like, you know how Disney actresses try to become adults to a new audience. And it's like, you know me from this, but
absolutely
check me out here. I think it was that kind of a moment for her, but 80s style, where Hollywood is very smarmy.
Yeah, it was like a Britney Spears or a Miley Cyrus, I'm not Disney anymore moment.
Possibly. And then you have like the 2000s when women that were doing this in movies were getting Oscar nominations. So it's funny how far we've come, where like Elizabeth Shue in Leaving Las Vegas plays the same character, but more serious movie, and she gets nominated for an Oscar.
To be fair, if this movie was as good as Leaving Las Vegas, maybe Jamie Lee Curtis gets a nomination.
I agree.
She does. She puts
I'm not
in
saying
the work. You know, her acting in this is phenomenal.
What I'm saying is the nude scene, or the topless scene, or the frontal getting out of the shower scene. Like over time, like I don't want to say she was ahead of the curve with this because it was still over sexualizing her.
I still think this entire movie is ahead of the curve. But keep going.
It's kind of ahead of its time, but it's also stuck in the 80s.
Sure.
But her doing that, I think there's a lot to it that I would love to ask her about it.
Well, let's get her on the show.
But it's like,
Dan, she follows you on Twitter, right?
I've reached out, haven't heard back. Jamie Lee, hit me up.
I mean, I think it's the same thing like when we talked to Deborah Voorhees about that scene in Friday the 13th. Like, it's just something that actresses did and do, sometimes for many different reasons, whether it's to reach a different audience, to show that they're now adults, to and again, I keep saying Disney because a lot of the Disney actors and actresses, they are victims of this. They feel like they have to break away. They need to shed that shell of being a Disney actor, and then they go and they do something like this. And it's like, I have more to offer. I'm more than just that person. I'm more than just Hannah Montana. And
right.
it's like
I'm a great actor. I can be anything.
Right.
Watch.
And then they overdo it.
Yeah.
Or they're not taken seriously. So it's like with this, she was doing horror movies. She was doing the little, reveals here and there. And this was her first, I don't want to say mainstream. Would it be? Mainstream
In 5
movie
years,
based?
she did like 6 slasher movies of varying quality.
Right.
And this was her first major mainstream non-slasher hit.
Picture.
And it set her up for the rest of her career. Now, George, you've not seen Casino Royale yet, have you? The new one with, well, you say new, it's 10 years old now. Have you seen Casino Royale?
Casino Royale.
It's a James Bond movie, Daniel Craig.
I believe I have, actually.
Okay, good, because I'm going to spoil it.
Okay.
Blake, you've seen Casino Royale, I assume.
It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so here's the deal with Trading Places. I know a little bit about commodities. I know a little bit about buying on margin, what a risk you take if you get, insider traded by a couple of scoundrels who you've been trying to screw over anyway, so you probably deserve it. The scene in the Mercantile Exchange where everybody is screaming and numbers are going up and numbers are going down gave me new appreciation for Casino Royale as made in the early 2000s with Daniel Craig, because in the book and in the original movie, it's a high-stakes Baccarat game. And even up through GoldenEye, he plays Baccarat. I don't have the slightest clue how Baccarat works. So if they had insisted on Casino Royale coming down to a big hand in Baccarat, I'd have been like, oh, cards flipped over. There were numbers on them. Ooh, more cards. More numbers, right? I become Moss from the IT crowd watching soccer. Like, oh, he's kicked it to another guy. Oh, now he has kicked the ball. Hooray. Right?
Yeah.
I needed more than this movie gave me to really feel like any investment in that scene, right? I know the numbers are going to go down. I know they're going to screw the old people over, and I knew that from the first scene, right? Like, from the beginning how this movie's going to end, but my gosh, that 5 or 10 minutes of them in the Merc, I'm just like, okay, cool. People are screaming. Glad I don't work there. Oh, the numbers went down. Oh, he's kicked the ball. Oh, he's kicked the ball to another guy. Like, I needed more, guys.
I kind of felt the same way, but I didn't feel like I needed more. I was like, I have no idea what's going on or if any of this makes sense, and I really don't care.
It's chaotic. I think that was the only... It was John Landis's
car crash
through the shopping mall scene.
Yes.
But I know what's happening in the car crash scene. It's like, this is the equivalent of like if you had zoomed to an outside shot, an exterior of the mall, and just played some car crashing noises. I'd be like, yeah, there's probably car crashing in there, but I don't know because you're not giving me enough insight to follow. And then a car comes zooming out of the mall. I'm like, oh, good. They crashed, as I suspected minutes ago.
You got the point, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got the point. I knew they were going to screw them by buying on margin, but I just, I don't know the inner workings of when the numbers go up and down.
You don't need to.
But then I'm just not invested, right? It's like going to somebody's house and watching cricket for the first time.
Now, you know what you sound like? You sound like me. Normally.
Stop
when
Georging
I'm
the movie.
You sound like me when I'm watching anything involving cars. Like when I see when I watch Transformers the first time and she opens it and she's like, this is a double pumper. I'm like, that is not what that is. Shut up. Like, but like for the stock trading scene, I'm like, I guess maybe I'm not like experienced with that stuff, but I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on what was going on there. Why the numbers were going up and why they were going down. I don't know. I thought that scene, this is where Dan and I are going to differ on this movie. I felt like that scene was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed the chaos of it. I enjoyed what was going on and the flurry, cuz I mean,
That is Wall Street.
that is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's how it,
I enjoyed it for the acting because that's me. And I'm gonna say to Dan that your problem with that scene, Dan, are you saying that's equal to when I see bad acting in a movie, where I'm like, I know what they're supposed to be doing and they're not doing it.
No, because I
So
knew what
I
they
got-
were doing. I just didn't feel like they were including me. You know, I was
Right.
just like, I felt like the like the third person in a not very open threesome. I was just like, okay, but what's here for me? I'm gonna go get a sandwich. But what you miss out on by not letting me in on the scene is I don't get that moment from Casino Royale when he's got a tough hand, and I know it's a bad hand, but I know he's probably gonna win. And he flips over the last card and dramatically he goes from probably losing to absolutely winning, right? And sure, at first it's silly to have Texas Hold'em, the game of the people or whatever, as the game that James Bond is going to play, but the insight it gives me opens me up to a whole new level of drama. There's drama of maybe he's actually not going to win and he's going to have to shoot his way out of there. And in this movie, it was just like, oh, hey, they're going to win. Look, they're waiting to win. Look, they've begun to win. They won. And I guess it just, because I wasn't included in the inner workings, I felt like they left me out of any dramatic like tension right at the last moment. Are they going to do it? Of course they're going to do it. They did it. He's kicked the ball. Hooray.
Right. I just love their, like, the chaos of the scene. I get it. It sets the tone. But I'm watching them too. And I'm watching them just wait. And I just love that dynamic that they have where it's just like, not yet, not yet. And then he just yells something and the whole place goes nuts. And then they sit there and then they know they're going to sell. Like, it's just, to me, that was a cool little insight on the new Winthrop. That's what that scene was for me. We're seeing the new Louis or Lewis. We're seeing his redemption. Like, now
Yeah.
he's when we see him sitting on the
I don't
beach,
know
we're
if
gonna.
is it really redemption or is it just revenge?
It's revenge, but you can tell he's a changed person.
Yeah,
like,
it's hold on.
Ophelia did something.
You know what it is?
For his personality.
It's revenge, but it's also redemption.
Sweet revenge.
Because he's doing it with Eddie Murphy.
It's Jason Voorhees type revenge.
No, you got to remember where he started.
Right.
Remember, he
Right.
started with Eddie Murphy running into him and be like, this guy,
Criminal.
this guy.
Exactly.
Total-
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So he
so it
was
is
redeemed.
redemption.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's a redemption.
It's revenge and it's redemption.
and I think it's sloppy, but it's like
it's
they
sloppy,
purposely
and they still committed a crime.
right.
yeah,
but
get
then
over that.
again,
Come on.
Isn't Wall Street all crime? I
Yeah,
mean, really. I mean, they kind of reveal that they're like, no matter what, we make commission, whether you lose money or win money.
Well, that's not a crime. That's just
it's
an
not
agreement.
a crime, but there's criminals working there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like when you see like was it Wolf of Wall
Wolf
Street?
of Wall Street. Yeah.
When you see those FBI agents go into that room and just start arresting people, spoiler alert, you can bleep that if you want, Dan. But there's such a satisfaction to seeing that.
yeah.
Same thing with Goodfellas. Like, there's just certain scenes where the tie up or the roundup or the whatever
Yep.
is, no matter how bad the people are that are getting not redemption, but aren't on the receiving end. The people on the receiving end are so bad that you're just
Right.
like, okay. I mean, there's Satan, and then there's
Yeah,
there's
and
bad
in the
people.
end, I mean, listen, like nobody's perfect.
Right.
Right. These characters are not perfect characters.
Right.
First
No,
of all,
like,
how
none
dare
of
you?
them.
I am too. Okay.
I just think it's necessary to show you have the ending doesn't work unless you at least like him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to like him. You don't have to love him. You already like Valentine. You already like Ophelia, and you already like Coleman. Although you question his his judgment to throw his boss under the bus, but his boss was an asshole. So,
At the time. Yeah.
So that ending does not work unless you like them.
Maybe that's why I still didn't like Winthrop.
That's possible.
I still didn't like him that well.
They tried though. They tried to show you a different Winthrop.
Maybe it's because he just refused to go by Louis. His name's Louis, okay? Knock it off with this garbage. Stop it. I don't know.
I love when she calls him Louis. It's so funny.
Louis?
Louis?
Get off your knees, Louis.
So I know we're probably getting close to the end, but there's one thing that I noticed, and it has to do with this movie, and it has to do with another movie that I watched recently, or rewatched recently. It kind of fits in with these cultural differences between certain time periods that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, and I think I know the year, I recently rewatched Step Brothers. And to me, that movie in my brain is pretty recent, but it's actually not that recent.
2008, I think.
So it's like 2008 to 2010, somewhere in that ballpark. I think it's 2010, actually. But I think 2010 is like the year of the great cultural wall going up. Like things made prior to 2010, like you mentioned Road Trip, like things made prior to 2010, there were things that were just generally kind of acceptable as funny or okay or even preferred to have in different forms of media, that like once you go beyond 2010, like our
It's
perception
unacceptable.
of what's okay is so changed. And I think that there's actually, it might seem kind of gradual because 2010 was quite a while ago now, but I feel like 2010 was like when
was
the
pretty
wall started
abrupt.
being erected, you know?
Yeah.
You guys
It's the
think
same
about
thing that
that?
happened with 9/11. Like there's cinema before 9/11, and then there's culture before 9/11, and then after 9/11. It was a lot of things just became taboo, and it's uncomfortable for some people to change that quickly. Like they're shown the error of their ways, or they're shown that this, but they also are creatures of habit, and they say things that it took a while. So then the second one happened around what he's saying, like 2010. So now we're at a point where no one knows what they're allowed to say or do because someone's going to be offended. Yeah, that's the kind of dog I have, and you're an asshole. Like it's just like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of beagles. Like,
What'd you say about beagles?
but it's like it's eggshells to the umpth degree sometimes, and it's tough. I would not want to be a comedian or a comedic writer right now at all.
Should anybody tell him?
What?
You're on a comedy show, bro. You do this every week, and you haven't been canceled yet.
Well, he said he didn't want to be a writer. You think any of this is written?
Yeah. I don't think
then
we've
why did
written
Dan
anything.
send me this script? All this stuff I was supposed to say.
It's scripted reality.
I was like, these aren't even my opinions, dude. Why am I supposed to say this? I don't understand.
Well,
actually
I kinda
really
know
like this movie.
I know if I say anything that's cancelable, I think Dan in Post usually takes care of it.
Dan is your friend. Hi, this is Dan in Post. I think this is my moment to wink at the camera and have a little glint, a little lens flare, a little ping. Yeah, guys, what's up? I got your back. So,
Yeah.
George, we've seen Jamie Lee Curtis terrorized by Halloween. We've seen her terrorized in Prom Night. You may see her terrorized again in other franchises, but for now, no. Were you pleased with Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in a mainstream comedy?
Yeah.
Are you still on board with Jamie Lee Christmas?
Yeah.
Are you excited
absolutely.
to see where we take you next?
Yeah.
Travis, do you want to tell him what he's up for next week?
I didn't know there was a quiz.
It's aquatic.
Well, you you threw a curveball and you said possibly the other one. So
No.
doing
I'm
that.
not going to make a much terror train. Which
Okay.
she is also in. That's the thing. It's on a train and she's in it. And it also has David Copperfield, the magician. That's not a highlight necessarily, but he is in there. But it does have Vanity, which, that's a whole different situation worth exploring at
Vanity.
some point.
Is that Prince's?
Yep.
Crazy. I'm stalling because I'm sending you a text.
Oh, okay. Let me stall also so that I may read the text.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
Wow, let's fill with some words.
You guys ever
okay.
notice that like birds aren't real?
Birds aren't real.
I was gonna say, so Blake, what kind of pizza do you like?
No, we're good. We're ready.
I was just getting into the bird thing. This is ridiculous.
We can go back to bird, but
for
we're
crying
gonna
out
talk.
loud.
We're gonna first talk about fish.
Also, bees are government spies.
Yes,
That's why they tell you not to kill them.
because they're
They're
all
like,
CIA
"Oh,
agents.
Bees are so important for nature and shit. It's like
Mm,
they're all government spies.
interesting.
That's why.
Okay, so up next is a movie.
Is it aquatic?
It's aquatic. It has to do with aqua.
Couldn't have seen this one coming. Wow.
I'm not going to reveal anything about
Free
it,
Willy.
but we're going to be watching A Fish Called Wanda.
Okay.
Do you know anything about A
No,
Fish
I
Called
haven't
Wanda?
even heard of a movie called A Fish Called Wanda.
Wow.
No, I.
Richard is going to be really disappointed to hear that you didn't
Yeah.
listen to a word he said.
He mentioned it a few times.
Did
I
he really?
believe. I
Yeah,
think
he
so.
did.
Don't worry, he won't remember what he said.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
If Dan wants to say anything about it, I don't
No.
know what I'm allowed to say.
No,
okay,
man,
so
it's
we're not going to let
Jamie
you
Lee
know who's in
Christmas.
it, what it's about. Okay,
Jamie Lee's
Christmas.
probably
so you know
in
she's
it.
in it.
But that's all we're telling you.
A Fish Called Wanda.
A Fish Called Wanda. Have you seen that, Blake?
No, I have. Well, I take it back. I have seen it. I don't remember anything about it because it was a long, long time ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was probably not supposed to watch it. I just don't remember. I know that I did watch it, but I don't remember a thing about it.
Yeah.
You know what I think?
Yeah, what do you think it might be?
Sometimes happens when you guys start talking about like movies and actors, and this relates to this and this relates to that. But you like sometimes you relate the movie that I just watched to a movie that I haven't watched, and actors that I don't know from actors that I do know. And when you do that, I think I just check out.
It's like
Because I'm
me
like,
during the Wall Street
I don't
scene,
know-
where I was just like, okay, there's numbers.
I'm like, you're saying names. I don't know who any of these people are.
Hmm.
And I just like let you guys go because you guys are excited about it.
Well, the only connector is the one you know, so.
Right, but like there's multiple things this episode that we talked about last episode that I don't remember. I think it's because I just check out.
Do we need to quit the podcast?
It's for his
No.
benefit, actually.
No.
It benefits you that you don't listen to us when we
Yeah,
talk.
this is true. Yeah, because the reveal of the Tom Atkins thing that you just watched was pretty damn funny.
Yeah, thank you
It's
for
funny
that radio.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to thank Blake Wyland for stopping by. Check out the Chasing Tone podcast. You can hear him and Richard go back and forth. And then the Tone Mob podcast as well. Always be casting the pods, man.
Casting so many pods out there for everyone. I was going to say for everyone's enjoyment, but I don't know if that's actually what they're doing with it. So, yeah.
That's funny.
Thank you for joining us on the Remedial Film Class podcast. As always, you can find us at facebook.com/remedialfilmpod. You can email us remedialfilmpod@gmail.com. You can find us at Twitter and Instagram @remedialfilmpod. If you're listening to this on YouTube, we're also on every podcatcher you can think of. And hey, if you're on a podcatcher like Apple or Spotify, we're also on YouTube. And sometimes we sprinkle in a little bonus content. So check it out. We'll be back next week with Jamie Lee Curtis in A Fish Called Wanda. So, Blake, what are you playing these days, man? You got any new gear that we need to hear about that if our listeners haven't been keeping up with Tone Mob or haven't been keeping up with Chasing Tone, what's new in your
Oh man, the guitar stuff. I have a Ampeg Dan Armstrong reissue that's coming here pretty shortly. I'm pretty excited about that. For those that I don't know how many guitar people are listening to this right now, but that is a plexiglass guitar, so it's like clear, and yeah, it's kind of an oddball one. And I first became aware of it from Black Flag, but most people are more familiar with it from like the Rolling Stones and stuff. But it's a classic classic guitar, and it's a unique guitar and not one that I have in the stable. So I'm excited for that. And then I'm honestly, this sounds really nerdy, but I'm really in studio upgrade mode right now. Like I've got some nice monitors now. I got a subwoofer. I'm all about like trying to get my recording situation more sorted because I'm making more and more weird music these days, and I want to be able to mix it and master it myself to the degree which that is possible. So I'm really
That's
nerding out on studio stuff at the moment.
that's awesome.
Nothing wrong with that,
I l-
man.
I love to hear that.
I've got these for the gear nerds, I guess. I've got these Kali LP8 monitors in, which are not terribly expensive. But I am crazily impressed with how good they sound and how neutral, and there's a lot of things that I've mixed on them and played with already where like, oh, I missed specifically things I was missing in the upper mids from most of my other listening platforms. So I'm really loving these at the moment.
What kind of monitors did you have before?
I had these really cheap JVC headphones that I just used because I had been using them for so long. They were closed back.
Yeah.
I'm actually using them right now for the podcast. They're closed back and I use them for recording all the episodes. I'm just so familiar with them
Right.
that I was mixing on those and then referencing through this literal like very cheap uh home theater setup.
Okay.
And then I would go check it in like my car or in earbuds or whatever. I'd go check it
Gotcha.
in a bunch of different places just to try to make sure I had it right. But I got so familiar with these headphones, I was able to get pretty close most of the time. But I think these monitors are going to actually make everything even smoother and faster because I can already tell. I'm like, oh, if I would have been listening on these, I would have heard that thing that I heard, in my car that I couldn't pick up before. So I'm very excited. Plus, they just sound better. So even just watching videos and normal things is more enjoyable with them. So it's the Kali LP8s. I'm still in the honeymoon phase, admittedly. So my
Yeah.
opinion could change over time, but that's where I am right now.
I'm still in the honeymoon phase with mine. I got a pair of Yamaha HS5s.
Oh yeah, those are great.
I'm doing a lot of like guitar playing, like a lot of song learning, and I'm my band is going direct, and
I'm
which is
sorry.
not something that I'm used to.
Yeah.
But I needed to like get the best sound possible going direct, and so I got the monitors to help me get there.
Totally.